I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who'd end up sleeping in a shared sleeping bag with someone else, especially not out in the middle of the woods, miles away from any kind of real comfort. But there I was, shoulder to shoulder with Jamie, shivering as the cold crept under the thin nylon walls of our tent. And honestly, I couldn't sleep at all. It started as a last-minute idea, the kind that seemed harmless and even a little fun at the time. Jamie, my friend from work, he's this easygoing, slightly geeky guy who's obsessed with hiking and nature documentaries, kept suggesting we go camping. I'm more of a city guy, you know? Concrete, coffee shops, the sound of cars instead of birds chirping. But I figured, why not? Maybe it'd be a good break from my usual weekend routine of binge-watching shows and trying to get through my ever-growing pile of books. So we planned a quick overnight trip to this state park about 2 hours out of the city. Nothing fancy, just a basic campsite with a fire pit and some trails. Jamie was in charge of the gear, and me? I was mostly responsible for not getting lost and maybe trying to keep up on the hikes. Easy enough, right? The day went pretty smoothly. We hiked a few miles, talked about dumb stuff, joked about how neither of us were really outdoorsy types, and I started to realize Jamie was way more interesting than I'd given him credit for. He has this quiet confidence, the kind that makes you listen when he talks, even about the smallest details like which birds were calling or how moss grows in patterns. I found myself actually paying attention, and yeah, I'll admit it, I caught myself glancing at him a little more than necessary. Night fell fast, colder than I expected. The campfire helped, but the moment we crawled into the tent, reality hit. I forgot to bring a second sleeping bag. Jamie's was decent sized, but definitely meant for one. We laughed about it, tried to figure out what to do, and eventually, kind of reluctantly, decided to share his sleeping bag to stay warm. Just two friends, right? I mean, it was practical. That's when things got complicated. Jamie slid in next to me, and the close quarters made me hyper-aware of everything. The warmth radiating from his body, the way his breath fogged up the inside of the tent, the soft sound of his heartbeat when I accidentally rested my hand on his arm. It was weird, but in a good way. It felt like there was this invisible thread pulling us closer, tighter than just friendship should be. I kept telling myself it was the cold messing with my head, or the fact that we'd been joking and laughing all day, so maybe I was just more awake than I thought. But no matter how hard I tried to focus on anything else, I couldn't sleep. Every little noise outside the tent, every shift of Jamie's body, set my heart racing. By the time the first hint of dawn started to seep in, I realized something else. I wasn't just cold. I was completely, utterly tangled up in the fact that I liked Jamie. Liked him more than I probably should have, and definitely more than I'd ever admitted out loud, even to myself. That night in the woods, sharing a sleeping bag, became something I couldn't stop thinking about, and I knew I wasn't going to forget it anytime soon. Morning light was sneaking through the thin fabric of the tent when I finally drifted off for a few restless minutes, just enough to dream about Jamie's laugh and the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. I woke up with my arms still awkwardly draped over his chest, heart pounding like I'd just run a marathon. I pulled back slowly, not wanting to wake him, but it was impossible. His eyes were already open, looking at me with this mix of surprise and something else I couldn't quite place. "Hey," he whispered, voice still rough from sleep. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual, but my throat felt dry and tight. For a second, we just stared at each other, like that moment stretched out longer than it should have. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words got stuck. Instead, Jamie gave me that easy grin he always has when he's trying to break the tension. "Sorry about the sleeping bag situation," he said. "I guess next time I'll remember to bring two." I laughed, the sound a little shaky. Yeah, no kidding. It was awkward, but in a way that felt honest. Like we both knew this trip wasn't just about nature or a break from work anymore. At least, I knew that in my head. I wasn't sure if Jamie did. We got up and started packing, the usual morning routine feeling different now. We made coffee on the little camp stove, sitting close together on the logs around the fire pit. The air was crisp, and the woods were waking up with birdsong and the occasional rustle of small animals. So, Jamie said, breaking the silence, "Did you sleep at all?" "Not really," I admitted. "Couldn't stop thinking." He looked at me, his expression softening. Yeah? About what? I shrugged, trying to play it cool but failing miserably. You. Mostly. Jamie's smile faded just a bit, replaced by something quieter, more serious. Me? Yeah, I said, rubbing the back of my neck. I don't know. I guess I wasn't ready to admit it before. But yeah, I like you, Jamie. More than just as a friend. There, I said it, out loud. And somehow, saying it made it feel both terrifying and liberating at the same time. He was quiet for a long moment, then reached out and bumped his shoulder against mine. I'm glad you said that, because I like you too. I just didn't know how to bring it up. I laughed, the weight lifting off my chest a little. Guess we both needed a little camping trip to figure that out. We finished packing up the campsite with a new kind of lightness between us, like the woods had witnessed something we'd been too scared to admit for months. On the hike back to the car, we walked side by side, shoulders occasionally brushing, and I felt this warmth that had nothing to do with the sun back in the city. The usual noise and rush felt different. Jamie and I started texting more, meeting up after work for coffee or just to hang out. The friendship we'd had was still there, but now it was layered with something new, something I'd been waiting for without realizing it. A couple of weeks later, we went back to that same spot in the woods, but this time we brought 2 sleeping bags. We set up the tent, made a fire, and sat close enough that I could feel his arm brush mine every now and then. The night was colder than before, but that was okay, because this time I wasn't just sharing a sleeping bag. I was sharing something much bigger, something I was finally ready to explore. And this time, I slept. Not because the cold was gone, but because I wasn't alone. That second trip felt different from the moment we drove up to the trailhead. The sun was sinking lower in the sky, casting these long shadows on the dirt path as we unloaded the gear from my car. Jamie was humming softly to himself, that same easy smile he always wore when he was genuinely happy. And now I wasn't just watching him like a friend. I was watching him like someone who wanted to know every little thing about him, down to the way he absent-mindedly bites his lip when he's thinking. We hiked a little farther than last time, winding through the trees until we found a spot by a small creek. The sound of running water was calming, and Jamie immediately started scouting for a place to set up camp. I followed his lead, feeling a spark of excitement mixed with nerves. It was like everything had shifted, and I wasn't entirely sure how to act, but that felt okay. While Jamie pitched the tent, I gathered some firewood. He caught me watching him, grinning. "You've got that look again," he teased. "Like what?" I asked, trying to sound innocent but failing. "That I'm totally smitten look." I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't hide the smile. "Maybe." He leaned over and ruffled my hair. "Good. I'm kinda smitten too." Once the fire was crackling, we sat close on the logs, sipping from our mugs of lukewarm coffee. The air had that crisp edge that only early fall can bring, and the sky was a deep, velvety blue with stars starting to twinkle through the treetops. So, Jamie said, breaking the comfortable silence, "What made you finally say something last time?" "It took you a while," I shrugged, staring into the flames. "I think I needed that moment of being that close, you know? Sharing a sleeping bag, no distractions, just us and the woods. It forced me to stop overthinking and be honest with myself." He nodded thoughtfully. "Yeah, I get that. Sometimes the weirdest situations push you to face things you'd been avoiding." There was a pause. Then Jamie looked over at me with a half smile. "I guess that's why I never brought it up before, too. I was scared it might change things, and I wasn't ready to risk what we had." "Me neither," I admitted. "But I'm glad we took the chance." The night grew colder, and we unzipped our sleeping bags just enough to sit side by side, shoulders touching. I could feel his warmth, steady and reassuring. For a moment, the outside world, the city noise, the stress of work, the usual distractions, fell away. All that mattered was this quiet place, and him, and the possibility of something new between us. Before we headed into the tent, Jamie reached out and took my hand. It felt so natural, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. He squeezed gently, and I squeezed back. Inside the tent, we settled into our sleeping bags, facing each other with the small lantern casting a soft glow. Neither of us said much at first, just listening to the sounds of the night, leaves rustling, the distant hoot of an owl, our breathing, Then Jamie's voice broke the silence. Do you ever think about what comes next? Like, after all this? I swallowed, heart skipping. Yeah, I do. I want to see where this goes. With you. His smile deepened, eyes shining. Me too. We moved closer, tent walls barely containing the electricity between us. Our hands found each other again, fingers intertwining naturally. I felt like I was holding something fragile and precious, and I wanted to protect it. The moment stretched, delicate and full of promise. I could feel Jamie's breath against my cheek, warm and steady, and I realized I didn't want to rush anything. Not yet. Just being here with him, this close, was enough. Eventually, sleep came creeping in, wrapping us in its quiet embrace. But this time, when I closed my eyes, it wasn't filled with restless thoughts or tangled feelings. It was calm, safe, like finally coming home. The next morning, we woke to the gentle light spilling through the trees and bird song that felt almost like a soundtrack for new beginnings. Jamie was the first to smile, his hand finding mine again without hesitation. As we packed up, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known I was missing. The woods had a way of stripping everything down to what really mattered. And for me, that was right here, with Jamie. Sharing moments, sharing quiet, sharing something that felt like it could grow into whatever we wanted it to be. When we got back to the car, Jamie looked over at me with that same easy grin. So camping number 3? I laughed, heart full. Yeah, definitely. After that second trip, things between Jamie and me didn't instantly turn into some perfect romantic movie montage or anything like that. It was more subtle, like a slow shift in the air whenever we were together. Our friendship stayed intact, but was undeniably charged with this new energy, like a secret we both held but hadn't fully spoken out loud yet. We kept going to the woods, the trail becoming our little getaway from the usual grind. There was something about being out there, away from the noise and the distractions, that made it easier to just be ourselves. No work emails, no crowded bars, no forced small talk about weekend plans. Just us and the trees and the quiet. One afternoon, on a hike that felt more like a stroll, Jamie and I took a break near a lookout point. The view stretched out over the valley, trees turning golden and red with the fall colors. I was leaning against a rock, catching my breath, when Jamie sat down next to me and nudged my shoulder. You ever think about how weird it is? How easy it feels out here, but so complicated back in the city. I laughed, the air crisp and fresh in my lungs. Yeah, I think the city's just good at making everything feel heavier. He nodded, eyes trained on the horizon. It's like the woods let us drop the masks we wear everywhere else. I glanced over at him, suddenly aware of how close we were, the warmth from his jacket brushing against mine. I don't want to wear any masks around you. Jamie looked at me then, really looked, and the softness in his eyes made my heart skip. Good, because you don't have to. We stayed there for a while, the silence between us, comfortable but charged. When I finally turned to face him, Jamie's hand found mine without hesitation. His fingers curled around mine, and I felt like electricity was crackling through my veins. It was in that moment, sitting side by side on a rock overlooking the valley, that something shifted, not with a bang or dramatic confession, but a quiet, steady realization that we were more than friends now. We didn't need grand gestures or speeches, just this simple connection, growing stronger with every shared look and touch. That night back at camp, after dinner and stories swapped by the fire, Jamie surprised me by pulling out a small sketchbook. He's always been a bit of an artist, but I'd never seen him draw. As the firelight flickered, he sketched the trees, the stars, even the two of us sitting close together. Mind if I add you to the collection? He asked, holding up the page with a rough but beautiful sketch of 2 figures huddled around a campfire. I smiled, heart swelling in a way I hadn't expected. I'd like that. We ended up sitting closer than usual in our tents that night, the walls thin enough that I could hear his breathing steady and even. I found myself thinking about how lucky I was to have him in my life, to have this chance to explore something real, something worth holding on to. Back in the city, the transition wasn't always easy. We had awkward moments. those times when uncertainty crept in, when we weren't sure how to navigate this new dynamic. Sometimes I'd catch myself overthinking a text or reading too much into a glance. But Jamie was patient, steady, and somehow always found a way to ground me. One evening, after a long day at work, Jamie showed up at my apartment with takeout and that same goofy grin. We crashed on my couch, the TV flickering in the background, but mostly forgotten. "You know," he said, handing me a fork, "I think we're kind of good at this. Whatever it is." I laughed, feeling the weight of the day lift off. "Yeah, I think we're figuring it out together." As the weeks turned into months, our camping trips became less about escaping and more about celebrating what we had. We shared more sleeping bags on colder nights, not out of necessity, but because it felt right. There were quiet mornings wrapped in blankets, stolen kisses by the fire, and conversations that stretched into the early hours. One night, as we lay side by side under a blanket of stars, Jamie reached out and traced circles on my arm with his finger. "I never thought I'd find this. Someone who gets me, who I want to be with." "Me neither," I said, turning to face him, "but I'm glad we did." He smiled, eyes shining. "So, camping number 4? I grinned. "Absolutely. And maybe next time we bring more than just sleeping bags." Jamie laughed, pulling me closer. "Deal." In that moment, under the vast sky with nothing but the sound of the forest around us, I knew we were exactly where we were supposed to be. Together. After that night under the stars, something shifted again between Jamie and me. Not in a big, dramatic way, but in the little things that start to mean everything. The easy comfort we'd built on our camping trips began to leak into our everyday lives. Suddenly, I caught myself thinking about him during the workday, looking forward to our texts, and making plans that weren't just about hiking or weekend getaways. It was like the woods had given us permission to be more than just friends, and we were finally ready to take that leap. One Thursday evening, Jamie showed up at my place unannounced, holding a bag of groceries and a bottle of wine. That grin, the one that always made my heart skip, was plastered across his face. "Thought I'd cook you dinner. Thought we could make it a thing. No camping required." I laughed, my nerves fluttering in a way I hadn't felt since that first night we shared a sleeping bag. "I'm in." We cooked together, bumping into each other in the small kitchen, stealing tastes and sneaking glances. Jamie's laugh echoed off the walls, warm and genuine, and I realized how much I'd missed this. The quiet intimacy of just being with someone who felt like home. When the wine was poured and the meal was served, we sat close on the couch, the city lights flickering through the window behind us. "So," Jamie said, swirling his glass, "where do you want this to go?" I hesitated, not because I didn't know, but because saying it out loud made it real. "I want to see where this leads. With you. I want to try." He reached over, taking my hand in his. "Same here." His words settled something in me, an unspoken promise that we were in this together, navigating the unknown with open hearts. A few weeks later, we went on another camping trip, this time with more gear, more confidence, and maybe a little less awkwardness. The forest greeted us like an old friend, the scent of pine and earth filling the air. We hiked, laughed, and shared stories beneath the canopy of leaves, the sun filtering through in golden beams. That night, as we sat around the fire, s'mores forgotten in favor of conversation, Jamie surprised me by pulling out that sketchbook again. This time, he showed me a page filled with drawings of us, holding hands, laughing, sitting by the fire. "I've been working on this," he said softly. "It's us." I turned the pages slowly, heart swelling with a mix of awe and something deeper, more vulnerable. "It's beautiful. You're incredible." He shrugged, cheeks flushed, but I could see the pride shining through. "Only because I have the best subject." The fire crackled, and the night wrapped around us like a cocoon. Jamie leaned into me, and I didn't pull away. Instead, I welcomed the closeness, the electric buzz of his presence. "Jamie," I whispered, "I'm really glad we did this. I'm really glad it's you." He smiled, eyes reflecting the flames. "Me too." As the weeks went on, our relationship deepened, not just in the big moments, but in the quiet ones too. We found joy in the everyday. Morning coffees, lazy Sundays, late-night talks that stretched until dawn. We learned each other's quirks, fears, and dreams. And with every step, I felt more certain that this was what I wanted, what I'd been waiting for without even knowing it. One rainy evening, as we sat curled up on my couch watching an old movie, Jamie turned to me with a serious look. You know, I never thought I'd find someone I could be this close with, someone who makes me feel safe. I reached out, brushing a strand of hair from his face. I feel the same way. His hand found mine, fingers interlacing, and in that simple touch, all the doubts and fears melted away. "We're good together," he said, voice low. I agreed, and in that moment, surrounded by the hum of the city outside and the warmth of the room, I knew we had something rare and real. Something worth holding on to. The woods had brought us together, but it was the everyday moments, the shared smiles, the quiet support, the unspoken understanding that made me believe this was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Jamie and I fell into a rhythm that felt both new and strangely familiar. We'd known each other for years, but now the way we interacted was different, more tender, more intentional. It wasn't always smooth sailing. There were still moments where I caught myself second-guessing, or where silence stretched longer than comfortable. But those moments weren't scary anymore. They felt like part of the process, like growing pains. One Friday night, after a long week of deadlines and meetings, Jamie invited me over to his place. I was exhausted but eager, the thought of spending time with him a welcome escape. When I got there, he was waiting with a record playing softly in the background and candles scattered around the room. "I figured we deserved a night off," he said, smiling as he pulled me into a hug. His place was cozy, with mismatched furniture and plants spilling over the windowsills. It felt like home, and I realized how much I wanted to build something like this with him, something real and lasting. We cooked dinner together, the kitchen filled with the smell of garlic and herbs, and talked about everything and nothing. When we finally settled in on the couch, I felt a calm settle over me, like all the noise of the world had faded away. Jamie's hand found mine again, and I squeezed it gently. "Hey," he said, voice low. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Where do you see us in, say, a year?" I thought about it, feeling the weight of the question but also the excitement. "Honestly, I want to see us still figuring things out together. I want to keep camping, keep laughing, keep learning how to support each other." He nodded slowly. "Me too. I guess I'm just scared sometimes. Scared of messing this up." I squeezed his hand tighter. "We're both figuring it out, and that's okay. We've already come so far since those first awkward camping trips." He smiled, relief softening his features. "Yeah, and I'm glad I'm doing it with you." That night, when Jamie walked me to my car, neither of us wanted to say goodbye. We lingered in the cool night air, the streetlights casting a warm glow around us. "Can I kiss you?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. My heart hammered in my chest as I nodded. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, but it quickly deepened into something that felt like an unspoken promise. When we finally pulled apart, both of us were breathless and smiling like idiots. "Definitely worth the wait," I teased. He laughed, cheeks flushed. "Yeah, definitely." The days that followed were filled with little moments that made me realize how much Jamie had become a part of my life. We went to concerts, tried new restaurants, and even tackled the dreaded IKEA furniture assembly together, complete with laughter and the occasional frustrated sigh. One Sunday afternoon, we decided to take a spontaneous road trip to a nearby lake. The weather was perfect, sunny with a slight breeze, and the kind of day that makes you appreciate how simple happiness can be. We rented a small rowboat and drifted lazily across the water, the world shrinking down to just the two of us and the gentle lapping of waves. Jamie reached over and squeezed my hand, his eyes shining with contentment. "I could get used to this," he said. "Me too." I agreed, leaning my head on his shoulder. As the sun dipped lower, casting golden light over the lake, I felt something shift inside me. A quiet certainty that this was more than just a summer fling or a casual romance. This was the start of something I wanted to hold on to, no matter how messy or complicated it might get. Back at the campground that night, we sat by the fire, wrapped in blankets, and watching the stars emerge. Jamie turned to me, his expression serious but soft. Do you ever think about what it means to be with someone? Like, really with someone? I nodded, feeling the warmth of the fire in his gaze. Yeah, I think it means showing up, even when it's hard, being honest, even when it's scary, and choosing each other every day. He smiled, reaching out to tuck a stray hair behind my ear. I want to do that with you. I want that too, I said, heart full. The night stretched on, filled with whispered conversations and quiet laughter. In the woods, under a sky full of stars, Jamie and I found something rare, a connection that felt like home. And as I lay there that night, wrapped in my own sleeping bag but feeling closer to Jamie than ever, I knew that whatever came next, we'd face it together. That last night by the lake, wrapped in blankets and stargazing, stayed with me long after we'd packed up and headed back to the city. It was a reminder of how far we'd come, from awkward, half-remembered camping trips to something steady and real. More than that, it was the moment I understood what I'd been searching for all along. Not just a boyfriend or a date, but someone who sees you, accepts you, and chooses you. Not out of obligation or convenience, but because they want to. A few weeks after that, Jamie and I found ourselves back at our favorite spot in the woods. The tent was already set up when I pulled up, the smell of pine and campfire greeting me like a warm welcome. Jamie waved me over, his smile as easy and genuine as ever. We spent the evening like we always did, cooking dinner, sharing stories, and sitting close by the fire. But this time, there was something quietly different in the air. Maybe it was the way the firelight caught his eyes, or how our hands met without hesitation. Whatever it was, it felt like a subtle promise, a mutual understanding that we were building something that mattered. Later, as we lay side by side in our sleeping bags, the forest around us alive with night sounds, Jamie turned to me with a soft smile. "Hey," he said, voice low, "I just want you to know, I'm really glad we did this. All of it. The trips, the talks, the awkward moments. You've made my world better." I reached out, tracing the line of his jaw gently. "You've made mine better too. I didn't expect any of this when we first went camping, but I'm so grateful it happened." He squeezed my hand, and for a long moment, we just lay there, breathing in sync with the rhythm of the woods. "I don't know what the future holds," I whispered, "but I know I want to face it with you." Jamie smiled, eyes shining in the dark. That's all I need to hear. In that quiet moment, wrapped in the night and each other's presence, I realized that love doesn't always come with fireworks or grand declarations. Sometimes it's found in the small, steady moments. The willingness to be vulnerable, to show up and to choose someone again and again. As sleep finally came, I felt a peace I hadn't known before, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, we'd navigate them side by side. And honestly, after everything, the shared sleeping bag, the nervous confessions, the growing closeness, I wouldn't have it any other way.